will call the meeting of the Center County Board of Elections to order at 10:28. If there's anybody here for public comment, please do so at this time. Is there anyone for public comment? Hearing no one, we'll move ahead to approval of the minutes of our last election board meeting.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Yes, I will second that motion.
All right, properly moved and seconded. Any other further discussion, additions, or corrections? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, we discussed a grant at Tuesday's meeting, and today I guess we need to take further action in regard to that. So I don't know who wants to handle that, but I will open the floor for further discussion.
Sure, I can lead it off, and then we can have a discussion about it. But essentially, the Center for Tech and Civic Life is offering a grant to any elections office in the United States to apply for funds for absentee ballot assembly and processing equipment, for early vote sites and ballot drop box options, in-person voting at polling locations on election day, and then secure ballot drop boxes and related needs, and any other relevant needs for a safe election, including PPE and things like that. So we had put in basically just a very short, took 5 minutes, putting in our basic data for Center County elections. There's a contact at the state who I've been working with, who then yesterday sent me essentially the template for what our safe voting plan would be. And that's something that we then submit back to the organization, and then they would send us an agreement, that we would obviously have Betsy review before we would sign off on it. But essentially the template is almost a fill in the blank in terms of the funding that we would be looking for and what we'd be using it for. But again, it gives us a little bit of context to be able to explain what we're looking at. But the categories as they are broken down at this point are absentee ballot, and actually I can, Natalie, if it's okay if I can share my screen here, I can put it up here. Let's see if I can do this. All right, I think we're good to go, correct? So the rough allocations of funds are $300,000 for the absentee ballot assembly and processing equipment, about $18,000 for the early vote sites, but this would be more for infrastructure at the Willowbank building if we were going to do over-the-counter ballot acceptance, and then about $130,000 for in-person voting on election day, and then lastly about $77,000 for secure ballot drop boxes and related needs. So the total at this point is a little bit over $500,000. Since sending this draft out earlier today, we've been talking with Dusty related to some equipment needs and facility upgrades at the 2 county polling locations we own in Munson and Colville. In addition, there are some quotes that the elections office is looking to get from ES&S for some equipment. We did learn that their 450s, the high-speed readers, are completely basically spoken for, and that the 850s are actually being discontinued, so they don't have any available. So, but we're looking at for some other quotes from them, and Dusty is also thinking about some things that he would need for his team on election night in terms of, or I should say, prior to the election for setting up equipment and all that. But again, we're basically just going to put anything we can think about in here, and then the grant folks that are deciding this can take it from here. But essentially, again, it's broken down into those categories. A lot of it is personnel. Scrolling down into the spreadsheet here, we'd be putting in for all of the costs for the temporary employees that we have in the elections office, putting in some money for outreach to voters, and that could be potentially used for new voter ID cards, new polling location changes, etc. We're putting in for the full amount of the contract with Midwest, which is roughly $76,000 if we would get that many ballots that they would be printing. We've got some furniture shelving, ballot transport, and then we also have 2 other letter openers that we can look at getting, and they run about $15,000 with $2,000 for maintenance. There's paper joggers that we already had discussed, and then again, a large portion of the funds there are for the vote by mail room workers and the different shifts that they would be working and the cost per shift. In terms of the over-the-counter request of ballots, that's essentially hazard pay for the employees in the office and some funds for software that we may need and IT support that we may need, and then also any modifications we would need for physical distancing like tents, tables, chairs outside. We discussed the secure ballot drop boxes at the meeting on Tuesday, and this would again cover the ballot retrieval team, the sheriff's deputies, any PPE, gas for the vehicle, the actual drop boxes themselves, the totes, any delivery and installation costs, the security needs that we would need for cameras here at the Willowbank building, and then also any advertising and signage that we need. And then lastly, a good portion of this is dedicated to poll workers and actual needs on election day itself. So we've got a little bit of money in there for poll worker recruitment, hazard pay, which would be $100 per poll worker. For a full-time poll worker, $50 for somebody who would work half a day. We also have just an abundance of resources just to make sure that we have enough for cleaning. So $200 a pop for each of the precinct locations for cleaning. In addition, we've got additional polling place sneeze guards. We did receive some from the Department of State, but if we can get more, that would be, I think, terrific. And then lastly, some tables and also some polling location cleaning fees and supplies there. So essentially, again, it totals to a little bit over $500,000. There's some other costs coming in, but we could certainly have a discussion if there's any other ideas out there that people wanted to suggest. But what we could do, I would think, is green light the submission of this no later than close of business Friday, and that way we can allow elections, us all, Dusty, to get some more ideas for us, and we can just put them in there and go from there. But happy to stop for any questions, or again, if there's anything that you wanted to add, Jody and Tisha, in terms of some of the things you were thinking about, we could take it from there as well.
Michael, I did forward Julie the link today on that dual extractor that I showed you yesterday.
Okay.
Obviously, she's going to have to research that, find out if it's available and the price. And off the back of the minutes from the other day, Mark asked me to check on whether the envelopes that we're ordering are pre-printed or blank. I just heard too late, actually, for Natalie to update it. They will be pre-printed. However, if they're in this grant, it doesn't really matter if there's waste.
And like we talked about,
we have to have them regardless. So
right. Understood. Okay, thank you.
So, Michael, what is the plan forward for the ballot drop boxes? What's the process as you see it at this point?
Sure. So we got a PO for the order. They're starting to be manufactured. They're going to be delivered no later than October 1st. That's a Thursday. And Lee and his team would be assisting with installation on that date. There is location scouting at each of the locations to see what the best location would be, placement of each of those. In addition, Chad Joyce has reached out to each of the contacts at each of the municipal entities or the judges at Phillipsburg and Center Hall, and they've been testing out a video transfer footage, and that's going well using a secure online platform called Dropbox, coincidentally enough. And but in the interim, there would be thoughts about the advertising of that. We need to put the notice in the paper regarding that. In addition, we would need to get decals, stuff like that. But we'd also be identifying through Dave Lamison. I've been talking with him about him identifying individuals within his office that would be able to do the basically the ballot team retrieval team and what that would be looking like. We'd also be getting enough ballot transfer bags, locks, and transfer equipment for them, that they would have that. And again, the thinking would be that this would be basically ballots would be ready to be accepted on Friday, October 2nd in each of these boxes. But that would be the plan forward from today.
Michael, I just have a
Is Betsy
suggestion on the vinyl.
Well, just a second, but we're not even to that yet. Just so when is Betsy still on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
I'm concerned that we are delving into perilous legal waters here. Can you clear that up for me and let me know, or let the board know where we stand in regard to these drop boxes?
Well, I just sent you back an email in which I responded to the proposed plan and put some comments in there. And I think, each of you on the board should be looking at that. I know Mike has already reviewed it and noted some of my comments. And some of those were more editorial related and less about what's going on with litigation. I think that, the issue here is we have a pending lawsuit in which the Supreme Court is being asked to make a decision based upon my reading of the Secretary's response. And the Secretary already issued guidance about drop boxes, and that was largely what I think Mike was used to develop the plan, which is an acceptable thing at the moment. They're arguing that the drop boxes are valid in certain circumstances, and I talked a little bit with Mike about that in my comments. You'll see I'm not sure that the mobile is going to be one of them, because that's not specifically part of what they've referenced. They've also talked about using poll elections officials. They've never mentioned poll workers or volunteers. So it'll be incumbent upon you, as you've talked this through, to use folks that you've, and I understand, Mike, from your comments, it'll be probably these furloughed employees who will sign verifications and so forth. So I'm not, Steve, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what the court is going to do. I would expect them to lean in the middle of this. Now, as you know, there are other parties who have, there are folks on either side of this argument, and the court will have to make a decision based upon, so yesterday, I think it was actually Tuesday, Judge Rajan in the federal court decision denied the petitioners, the plaintiff's request for supplemental relief. And in part of his denial, he said, I'm not going to increase the time. I think he had set a date, the beginning of October, for a decision by the Supreme Court. And he wasn't willing to revisit those issues, but he pretty much signaled to the Supreme Court, you need to get your knitting in place and get some decision making. What followed then was the Attorney General's office, who is a party in the state case, filed a notice with the Supreme Court of that decision and, sort of said, get a move on it, make a decision. I know that there was legislation on the alternative. I know there was legislation being considered today by the Senate, which is really the House bill. I don't know where that, I think that has to go up on consideration again. I don't anticipate that any of that is going to get amended based upon what I've been hearing from CCAP and others. And so I think when that legislation is presented to the governor, minus amendment, it will be vetoed. And I don't have a sense that it is a veto-proof piece of legislation that they would then either override the veto or not. Where that puts us is that, and CCAP is most concerned about this piece, less the Dropbox piece, Steve, is that without a legislative change, the deadline to start canvassing is not changed, right? You're stuck with what the law says. And there doesn't appear to be any way, I think, that the Supreme Court can really change that. There's been some suggestions that they might extend the time period that ballots get received, but I'm not even sure that's going to work either. I think they're going to deal with three issues, and one is the poll watcher issue, which I think has been resoundingly defeated in the past and probably will be again. I think they're going to deal with the naked ballot question, and I think they'll deal with this receipt of ballot question related to drop boxes and delivery. But I don't think anything around that is going to change. I don't know if that helps or not.
Well, what I'm trying to determine is, having read Act 77 once again, I see nothing in there that permits the use of ballot drop boxes. And regardless of the direction of the Department of State, I'm concerned that we're going to be disenfranchising voters by presenting these boxes out there and having some legal challenge that discriminates against the voter's ability to cast a ballot.
Yeah, I mean, I think the court could read it very narrowly, and certainly there are other parties who are going to ask the court to do that. But I think the fact that the statute is actually silent as to the issue, and the fact that it allows you as election boards to set up procedures for return of ballots, and the language is pretty, I won't say unlimited, but it is not as narrow as people would like to read it. If the court agrees with that interpretation, then there is no issue with using these drop boxes. And fundamentally, Steve, I think the biggest argument that some of the interveners have raised, which has nothing to do with the statute necessarily, but is the sort of logical argument to the court, which is, why would secure drop boxes established at locations be any less secure than a mailbox on a street corner? So, I mean, I understand where you are.
Well, one is the legislation and the other isn't, and that's why I'm concerned.
Well,
I just don't want to see us go into legal jeopardy over this.
But but they don't even talk about mailboxes, Steve. All they talk about is using the Postal Service. So, you know, it's interesting. One has to wonder, when this law was originally done, if anybody really thought about mailboxes on a street corner versus somebody putting it in the mail, as we used to always do, in our own mailbox. Which, of course, now everybody tells us we're not supposed to, because people will come steal your mail. But never mind. I digress for the moment.
Well, let me ask you this way, Betsy. If the Supreme Court would come out, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court would come out and say drop boxes are allowed, XYZ, would that basically end legal challenges on this issue?
Well, I think the only option at that point would be for somebody to seek review of the federal court, and it would have to be based upon a constitutional issue. I don't really doubt, I guess anything's possible, right? But I kind of foresee that is not, depending, I guess the real question, Mike, would be, depending on how the Supreme Court bases its decision and what it permits or doesn't permit, I think that is always a possibility, right? That's the next level of recourse. What the federal judge in abstaining has not dismissed the case. He has simply abstained to allow the state court to resolve these issues. But in so doing, he's going to have to take that decision as guidance in terms of how he rules on anything else in the matter. And quite frankly, the opinion he just issued related to their alleged preliminary injunctive relief, he actually went through the issue of a preliminary injunction and basically said you're not going to probably win on the merits. So there's already a foreshadowing there that unless the Supreme Court fails to do its job, if they do their job, he's probably then going to be done as well. But again, you can't control all of that. I don't know what the legislature might do in response to that, if they would then introduce additional legislation, assuming this existing legislation has gone through the process, meaning that if it's still out there and hasn't been forwarded to the governor, they could always amend it and try to get it passed and do certain things. But otherwise, they'd have to start over again if they wanted to. I don't know if that helps. I don't know if that helps any of you. I mean, I understand that we are in a situation of uncertainty. My hope is that the court will be efficient in responding, but you know, if I had a crystal ball, I'd probably be working somewhere else right now.
Well, I guess my concern continues to be, look, I don't look at this politically. I look at it much more practically, and that is there's a legal challenge, there's legislative review, there's a lot of things going on right now to indicate that this is a quote unquote hot topic legally. Now, I just don't understand what the outcomes will be, and I don't think, and I agree with you, none of us have a crystal ball, but I also don't want to put us in some sort of jeopardy and also waste resources while we figure this out. And so somebody help me here.
Right. So essentially what we're doing and what we did on Tuesday was we are proceeding with caution. There is a short window of time that we had, and I think it may have already, probably by next week, it probably would have passed for us to actually order the drop boxes. And so from my standpoint, I would rather have the option to provide that as an acceptable form of return due to pandemic, USPS, and long lines on election day. I mean, I think the Commissioner Higgins, I know, had also suggested it reduces the amount of people who want to come into our office to drop them off into the elections office. So there's many reasons to do it, and so I wanted to preserve the option for us to do that. And I don't want to say that I have a crystal ball, but if this is a 5-2 decision in favor of drop boxes, naked ballots being accepted, and poll workers working throughout the state wherever they choose, and that last one being negated, that's going to be my crystal ball of where this is going to end up. And so so I think that's what we're going to see happen. So I want to set us up in a regard that we have the option to do drop boxes. But as I said before, and I will say again, if the Supreme Court says you can't do drop boxes, we're not going to do drop boxes. But I'm fairly confident they're going to allow it, and I want us to allow voters to have that option if we so choose. And again, our questions and concerns about whether or not it's in the legislation or it's legal, I think are going to be spelled out by the Supreme Court in the next few days or weeks.
Okay. I guess.
Mike, can you return the boxes if you don't use them? I mean, is that an option?
Yeah. So the backup plan, let's say that's the case, it would be to contact another state that is in need of them. These are in hot supply, and we were actually able to just make a contact with the sheet metal workers, get us a local contractor that can make these, is making them. But I think that they would have value for other counties at some point for us to transfer to them outside of Pennsylvania who are doing drop boxes. And by the way, there are 30 other states that do drop boxes. So but yeah, there would be potential for stranded costs. We've already paid. But for the legal case that you're fighting currently, Betsy, we've already paid that sum of money that are going to cost. Actually, it's more money that we've paid in legal costs for this case when it comes to the amount that the permanent drop box costs themselves. So,
right.
I mean, we're paying for this one way or the other, and so, but that would be the thinking. We could try to resell them.
Okay.
Or
So
prescription.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say they could be modified to be prescription drop boxes, for drugs, drug collection. We could donate them to the library as book returns. I mean, again, I haven't thought too much about it because I'm, so anyway.
All right. I understand.
But those are also costs you can recover maybe through this grant, right? That's included in the grant.
Maybe, I don't know if the grant would be, so other counties have applied for this grant and have paid for drop boxes through the grant, but if they're not allowable, I don't know.
Oh, you mean if they're, I understand what you're saying. Right. I get, if they're not allowed to be used, fine. But if they are, it is certainly something the grant will also recover for you. Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, then. What action would you like us to take?
So if there's any, again, I think if there's anything that comes to anybody's mind when it comes to how we can run the elections in 2020, let's put it in this thing. Let's send it away, see what they say, and we'll go from there. But my understanding is that we're going to get feedback pretty soon on this. So if we could set by 2:00 tomorrow, any ideas, send them over my way, and I can include them in. That would be super, and we'll go from there.
Yeah,
Fair
I definitely like Lee's idea of trying to do some upgrades to the 2 voting facilities that we do own, because they're both getting kind of shabby.
Sounds good. And I had sent to Betsy the agreement that Philadelphia County had gotten back from the Center for Tech and Civic Life. I'm assuming it's going to be very similar. And so if there's any red flags there, Betsy, let us know.
I can do that. Sure.
Okay. All right. But that's all I would suggest. Thank you.
Okay. So we're looking for a motion to apply for this grant then?
I think, yeah, it'd be submitting our plan. The application wasn't received, but I think this would be the submission of the plan at this point for the grant. Yep. So I'd be happy to make that motion.
I will second that motion.
Okay, properly moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I guess that's unanimous. Anything
Yes.
else to discuss or any other conversations we need to have?
I think we're going to be having a Tuesday meeting next week. That's going to be in regards to some polling locations, further discussion about the Dropbox plan. And I think that we might get an update on the ballot. We might have final news on the ballot. And it turns out, I think, Betsy, the Green Party presidential candidate is going to be on the ballot. So we now have all of our candidates. I don't know
Yes,
if that.
I think I heard that got resolved, but I hadn't heard the resolution. So yes,
Yeah.
so you have your ballot.
We
done.
haven't heard anything from the Department of State either.
Yeah,
So
I think
it's
that
not official.
Right. Yeah, that's not official yet, but that hopefully that will come. So at your meeting next Tuesday, then you're going to have to take action on this plan that you've got out circulating, Mike, if I'm correct, because that has to be submitted by Friday the 18th under the DOS rules, and I was not aware of that. So, okay. I don't think we'll have a decision by then, but I guess anything's possible. So.
And we can always hold it to Thursday if we want to. That's fine.
Okay.
But that's it from my end. Thank you.
All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn the election board meeting today?
So moved.
I will second it.
Oh, I was going to second. I just had to get to the right screen again.
Okay. All right, Mark. All right. Any further discussion on the adjournment? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you. All right. We'll see you later. Thank you.
Take care. See you.
Bye.